Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anne Marie Mapes from the Michigan Department of Education, and welcome to the Digital Equity Questions webinar. As you'll see, we've begun recording. So please know that this recording will be available for those who aren't able to join us, and if you want to come back to this webinar later. So I'd like to begin today by sharing this quote that says, "You cannot fix a problem that you cannot measure." Joining us today are Kevin Bullard, Data Integration Support Manager, and Don Daly, Director of Systems Integration and Interoperability from the Michigan Data Hub, as well as Joe Polasic, State E-Rate Coordinator from the Michigan Department of Education. Me, again, Anne Marie Mapes, Educational Technology Manager, and Dave Judd, Director of the Office of Systems Evaluation and Technology at the Michigan Department of Education. Here is a brief agenda of what we'll be covering today. Just sharing that so that you know where we are in terms of the schedule and what we're going to be kind of talking about. We really want to focus the bulk of our time today here on the student information systems, specific overviews of the functionality of the digital equity questions. So this is our plan for today. So when we were planning this webinar, one of the first things that we wanted to do was to give you kind of a retrospective as to why we're doing this. And with COVID-19 over the past year and a half, almost 2 years now, we really saw a scramble to get home access and device data when we had to quickly pivot to, emergency online learning. Different data collections were available in different places. Some districts were doing phone calls direct to parent homes. Some were doing surveys. We really saw across the board different kind of methods of that data collection for districts. And we saw last week, we had the MAISA MyConnect final report available. So that's hyperlinked here in the presentation, which will be available to you later as well. But this report that really is saying that we don't have a good picture of data available in our state in terms of home connectivity, in terms of whether or not students have broadband in the home. Are they using cellular devices? We know that is not a good method. So we really have some incomplete data sets. We have inefficient data collection processes. We did now, and incomplete data sets. So the why. There is really no consolidated, accurate, and comprehensive data source that identifies broadband infrastructure available to residents. And this is something that really resonates from this recent MyConnect report. In order to ensure that you are able to understand the needs of every student, you need to know whether or not they have broadband access in the home. And so we think about this in terms of an equity perspective. So that's why these questions are now available in the different student information systems. So what can having this data available do? So we see this as the real why at the heart of this. This data can enable districts to understand the impact that home access or lack of home access really might have on student learning outcomes. They can identify and also call out the access gap as an educational equity issue. We can then target resources to students who are actually in need of that digital access and really help to better understand, like with the emergency connectivity fund, how do we need to target that to students specifically around their digital access needs? We can also determine the most effective internet connectivity solutions, making sure to engage with local and regional community leaders for determining solutions. And I think this one's really key, one that we'll see come to light as we think about infrastructure more into the future with a big and heavy investment into that space. And also gain leverage when seeking funding to help close those gaps. At the statewide level, it helps the department as well as statewide organizations and policymakers to really understand the impact that home digital access might have on learning outcomes, to advocate for state and federal government funding to close that digital access gap. It helps us to direct state resources, including funding, to districts better. And it also helps support districts in leveraging and braiding those funds that exist and potential funding streams that are coming. It also can help us work across agencies at a state level to engage with internet service providers in developing and implementing reliable and replicable solutions. For example, assisting districts and ISDs with aggregated procurement strategies. And that's just one kind of strategy there. So I'd like to turn things over to Dave Judd, our director of OSET at MDE, to really talk about the process that led us to this.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Hello, everybody. We are leveraging the CCSSO, the Council of Chief State School Officers work, as well as other state education CIOs and the student information system vendors work to build really a solution on a common set of those data elements, a kind of a standardized way to accomplish this. And so we're grateful for the partnership, that we don't have to forge ahead. We're actually leveraging the great work that other states have done, but also leveraging the great work that the SIS vendors and their partnership has been able to accomplish, so that we can, with hopefully a lighter lift, take advantage of this at the district level and also direct those funds appropriately at the state and federal, those funds that come from state and federal sources. So we're grateful for the partners that are here today, and we're excited to hear kind of solutions that have been put in place to really have some great benefits for that information.
Thanks, Dave. Now I think Kevin is going to address the questions that are now embedded in the system. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Kevin.
Excellent. All right. I'm sharing my screen now, everyone. All right. So, of course, the infamous question, can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Anne Marie. So, yep. So the internet related data collected, we've been talking a lot about for the past few months, digital equity. And so there's some different data types, data fields that are being pulled as part of this that in some cases in student information systems and districts across the state, you've been collecting this data already. There's been some updates that I know, at least from the My Data Hub side, we've been trying to share as frequently as possible with everybody. But the next couple slides walk through the different data that's being collected as part of this. So internet access in residence. So can the student access the internet in their primary place of residence? It walks through the values, yes or no. Barrier to internet access barrier to internet access in residence. You know, if the student is unable to access the internet, the primary place of residence, why not? I really didn't want to read these slides verbatim to you, but definitely use these slides as a reference point as you're beginning to collect this data from your community. So I'm going to advance the next slide. This is just another additional slide. Some of the key pieces on this one, I would say, obviously, is a primary learning device away from school. You know, what device does the student use most often to use complete learning activities away from school? You know, is it their primary learning device, and who's the provider of that device? The personal, is it school, is it other? You'll begin to see some ideas that were framed as part of this presentation, and then along with some of the work that, as an example, that we have a screenshot of the dashboard from Wisconsin. So how they were able to aggregate this data up and share it out. So more information on that. So in this process of creating the presentation, what we really felt was a valuable, important piece of this puzzle, obviously, is to work with each of the student information systems to provide a vision of how this data is either going to be collected in their student information system or how it is currently being used. So we had some members from that community, and I'll just walk through each one, and then I'm going to share the screen out. But EduPoint Synergy, we have Gene Fisher from CMT. Infinite Campus, we have Greg Shepard from Ottawa Area ISD. From MyStarQ, we have Janelle Craig from the Oakland Schools team in MyStarQ. PowerSchool, we have Josh Deegan and Ed Diedrich. And then from Skyward, we have Tara Kopinski from Saginaw ISD. So at this point, what I'll do, and Jean, if you're out there, would you like me to stop sharing? Do you have anything to share on your screen for the group?
Kevin, yes, I am out here. And we did update the Synergy product right about the time that COVID really set in, and they wanted schools to kind of identify where the shortcomings or how students were able to access the digital equity. And I'm not sure many of our school districts currently embrace it, but I would like you to share out, because Jennifer Parrish from our team is on here and she is going to show you what we currently have set up.
Sure. Let me, what was the lady's name again? Sorry.
Jennifer Parrish.
Let's see here.
Kevin, I've made Jennifer a co-host too, in case she needs to share her screen.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Just hunting her down right now. So Jennifer,
Thanks, I got it.
okay.
So I'm hoping you can see the Synergy screen up there.
Yes.
Okay, so what we have in Synergy is right here. It's on one of our main student screens, and our virtual access is all down here. What we've chosen to do is to create our information really in a data table type form. We do have a lot of schools that have a very mobile population, and so often the students may have internet 1 month, and then a couple of months later they may lose it depending on housing situations and that. And we really wanted to see a history of their availability of accessing the internet. That's why we chose to go more in the table format. So we're either able to manually add a record to this if we have updated information with an effective date, whether they do have internet access here, what type of internet access they have, whether they have performance issues, so we know whether they can consistently connect or whether it's sort of a variable connection, what device they mostly use to access the internet, and then what type of device it is. Is it a school sponsor or a school issued device? Is it a personal device? Is it one that's shared in the family? That type of questions for them. This is available to be added. We can also present it in student view and or for parents in parent view, which is the portal that parents and students access Synergy data. It can be made available to them to update as needed as well. And the other place that we have this information is also in our online registration program. So as families either register new to the district, we can require them to fill out this information, or as our families yearly complete a re-registration process to update phone numbers and addresses, we can also ask them to update this information and make it a required field for them to do as well. And so this has worked really well for us in terms of being able to see this complete history of their access and different devices they may access on. But we also do have right up here at the top the current information that we have on the student. So as a new entry is added, these fields up here will update so that at a quick glance, we have that information right on hand. We're able to query this data. We can pull the data into any types of reports that we want, schedule those reports to be sent to whomever it may be. So our access to this data is very easy and able to be pulled in many different places and sent to people as needed.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Jennifer, for that quick update. And you did mention, so the resources that are available for users on using this piece in EduPoint Synergy, they're located Like where-
They're in parent view and student view,
Okay.
which is the portal that our parents and or students use to access grades and attendance, all of the normal things that a parent would access. And so this can be made available to them there to update on whatever type of schedule you want. It can be consistently left out there, so a parent could update it whenever anything changes, or as in the online registration, through certain processes, we can make it a required update as they go through that process. So we kind of have that choice.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for sharing out and showing how the process works in Synergy.
Sure, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It looks like next, I'm not going to bounce through my screens, but it does look like Greg Shepard from Ottawa Area ISD is next to present and walk through how it's used on Infinite Campus.
Great, thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me get my screen shared out here. Is everybody viewing my screen okay?
Yep. Bart Simpson.
Yeah. So this is something we've worked through with Holland Public Schools. So we're thankful to them for allowing us to use their site. And we did work through this, and this was successfully pushed to the Michigan Data Hub. So everything seems to be working. What I'm going to cover for you today is just kind of quickly show you where the data points are in the system, and kind of two methods that you can use to collect the data. And so we'll kind of go through that. So looking at Bart Simpson here, where the digital equity tabs are is under student information, program participation, state programs. There's currently two tabs here right now. Digital equity is one of them, of course, the third grade retention. And then so when you click on this or click new or whatever, you can enter the data in here. You do have a start date and end date. So you can kind of do the latest data collection points here. Currently, just kind of recommending that you kind of do the school year, unless you're going to survey the students more often, but pretty much for the full school year. And I would assume you would resurvey the students coming up the following school year. But so basically I have the start and end date, and then these are all the fields here with the data points and those kind of things in here. So that's kind of where the digital equity data lives. The way to import the data into the system is actually located under program admin. And there is a setup called Federal State Program Updater. And then here you'll have the digital equity and add the edit participation in here. And we'll come back to this here in just a quick minute here. But so that's where you can go in and actually import the data into the system. So then basically there's going to be two methods right now that we've come up with to actually collect the data. And the first method is what we use with Holland Public Schools. They have something called online registration, the Prime version. There are two versions of the registration system, Standard and Prime. Prime allows you to do all the customizations and Standard does not. So you must have the Prime version in order to do this. But the what you do in the with the online registration system is that you have to create a custom layout in the registration system. And it's not really a direct import back into the digital equity data fields right now. So one thing you have to do is create a custom tab here with kind of recreate these fields in a custom tab. So this is kind of filled in with from the online registration. You can take and push the information from the online registration into these digital, the custom digital equity tabs. And it would basically fill out this information on the custom tab here. So then once you have that custom information, and just kind of give you a quick view of kind of what we built in the online registration system, this would be, we basically just created a custom pleat called Digital Equity Survey, gave it a little bit of information on it, put in the questions here, put in the fields. There's our kind of drop down elements of the data points. And that's all done within as you're going through the online registration system on an annual basis, or for a new student coming in. So that's kind of what that online registration piece would look like. And then those fields would push to here. And then once you push those fields into here, what you do is you can create an ad hoc filter, and ad hoc filter is just a this digital equity survey, which basically has the custom digital equity fields in it with some other student data, the start and end dates and whatever. So you export that as as an ad hoc export, and then you can go into that program admin here. And then the federal state program updater, digital equity, add participation. I have two of these set up, but this is the one I did from the actual import. And then here, there's a kind of a mapping tool, which you map up the information into the, what it's going to be mapped to and what fields. So basically, the one key point here is the identifier. Identifier can be either a person ID, a state ID, or it can be the combination of a last name, first name, and date of birth to kind of match the student on. And of course, you have the start and end dates, but then all these things are just kind of mappings to the whatever you called it in your custom data. Then you can map that up to the actual fields in the system. So. So you set that up, and then you run your import, and then the data will show up in your digital equity tab under the state programs. And that data, once it's in there, it'll automatically push into the Michigan Data Hub as long as your Data Hub stuff is set up. So that's method one of doing this. And the second method would be, if you do not have the online registration Prime, would be there's either you can use your own survey tool to send out a survey to the parents and students, whatever, or campus also has a survey tool built into it. So there's a survey designer here. So you can set up a digital equity survey here. And once you set that up, you create the survey, and these are all the different questions, and with a proper drop-down list for each of those questions. And then you basically add respondents, which I set up like student filters. And you set this through, and you can actually, what there is in order to get an actual person ID, one thing is that you'd have to let the guardians take the survey on behalf of the students. And that's a kind of a key point there, so that you can get that person ID of the student back in there, not to get too down in the weeds here, but just that's an important thing to set up. And so you set your filters to send it out to the students, and once that's set, the parents will have access to the survey on the portal when they log in, and then you can basically have them fill that out there, and then you would come into the response extract system here. Set this on, and you can extract that data out to a CSV file, and just kind of quickly show how that kind of comes out here is that it'll kind of come out in this format when you export that, where all these columns are the names of the questions from the survey. So one thing that you probably want to do is kind of clean that up and just put in the data that you need here and call it these headings, whatever you want. And then once you have that data file here, then you can go back to this, the program admin, federal state updater, digital equity, and, import that in. But The one thing is that if you don't have it necessarily all the fields in there or whatever, you may not, or the data points, but you may not see every single option that's in here, but you just need to map up what you do have in there for that file. So that's the second method that you can use to collect the data. So, and again, you could use any survey tool to do that too. It doesn't have to be the one in campus, but so that's set up there. And then if you do need, I did create a help document, which is located on our Michigan Infinite Campus user group. If you go to mycog.org, Michigan Data Hub resources, and I just highlighted this one. And it is kind of like a still a work in progress here, but this will take you through all the steps and pieces of what we just went through in a little more detail. And then down here at the bottom, I do have a list of resources and things that covers those parts and pieces. So that's the Infinite Campus site.
Excellent. Thanks.
Any questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Greg, for sharing all that information and the multiple ways to get that data into Infinite Campus, and also the resource too.
All right.
Thank you. Looks like next on the list is Janelle Craig with MyStarQ.
So Kevin, if you could just share your screen, because I had sent my slides in ahead of time.
Yep. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you for being my navigator. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I'm excited to be here to show you what MyStarQ, our solution, has developed for our MyStarQ users on the call. You can forward the slide, Kevin. Go ahead and forward the slide. I'm just going to be briefly talking about data collection, maintenance, and reporting today. I really was hoping to, just for the sake of time, talk about the result of all the setup that's been done versus going into the actual setup. As always, our client consortium districts know that that they can always reach out for help. We do have Data Hub support specialists and support here ready to help you, but just to get the information out there so everybody knows kind of where the timeline has gone. We have implemented, much as the other software systems have done, we have implemented several points of data entry where these data can be collected and then also maintained and then reported on. First, we also in MyStarQ have a under the hood enrollment package that is an online enrollment package. I did just quickly include the questions, a little snippet of the questions that are here. In this solution here at Enrollment, we're capturing data at its source right from the parent. It's happening during enrollment when the student is actually enrolled from the online system. The data are just there as the parents have provided, so you need not have to rekey them. The data simply just flows with our product. In this example, this is the online enrollment, and I know my wording is cut off at the bottom there, but this is completely submitted by parents, guardians that are doing the enrolling at the school. Also, we have an under the hood back to school registration packet. Here's a quick list of what can show to a parent during the back to school registration period. You can have actually a completely configurable experience for the parent here based on student grade level and school and what the school might ask for in back to school registration. But the digital equity collection piece is listed there as well. When they click update info, it takes them to the very same look and feel questionnaire that you saw in enrollment. And the data are collected. What you don't see here on this slide in terms of space on the page here, they can click that little plus button right next to the title of the step, and it expands to just display the selections that have been shown. So they do have the ability, parents do have the ability to go in and see what they have logged in before, as well as what they have submitted during the back to school registration packet. From there, and I don't know what happened to my slides, but they're kind of squished over, but sorry about that. The ability in the Parent Connect, either on the mobile app or on the desktop version, parents, districts actually also have the ability to leave that step on to collect certain items during registration only or during the school year. Digital equity collection is one of those items that you could leave on, that a parent could indeed go out and just update anytime they saw fit. And so that would be another way to maintain that data. Once the data are submitted by the parents, there's also an area in our system, much like you would imagine, where student demographic data are maintained. And whether it is by the office that has put the data in or by the parent that has put the data in or updated the data, it does display in our system very nicely with the information that has been submitted. Those can be developed also by permissions, and I'm not sure what happened to my slide, so I'll read this one to you. We do have dynamic groups in my star queue. One of the items that we're able to leverage is data that are in the system. We can build dynamic groups that manage themselves. So for example, if a parent had said and had answered the questionnaire that they did not have internet access, there is already a group out there of students that have that similar value response. So in that case, if a parent goes in and updates that value to a different value later on, the student automatically, that group just manages itself. That's a pretty powerful system feature in that you can run reports, you can do any kind of slicing and dicing of the data you need to do. We as a consortium built 2 of them based on the 7 questions. We felt we didn't necessarily need a student group if the student shared a device, for example. But just because they weren't created out of the box with our solution, they can be created at any time if someone feels the need or the importance of having other question responses as dynamic groups. We can build that. We just figured that the inconsistent performance and the no access responses were the most heavy hitters that people would want to know about. Continuing on, once you have those dynamic groups, you can use them throughout the system. For example, when you want to just go get a quick list of students that do not have internet access or do have inconsistent access, you can just filter on those dynamic groups. You can run reports on those dynamic groups. You can get exports on those dynamic groups. For lots of different reasons that we get exports on student groups. We also have Student Pulse, which allows you to have a holistic view of the student's current grade and status in a class, which allows you to further filter down based on whether they're special ed or 504 or LEP, how many tardies, how many missing assignments they have, etc. I just wanted to highlight the 2 different ways you could use those dynamic groups throughout our system. And from there, we do have many different reports. Obviously, I couldn't include them all. You'd probably all fall asleep on me, but obviously any data in, you can get out. Any data in the database, you can get out of the database in whatever format and functionality you need. We are fully integrated with the Data Hub, so as soon as those data are entered by the parent and that record is saved, that those data are in the hub for whatever other reporting you want to do from that source as well. What we did as far as deployment is we actually deployed this, I believe it was back in May. We pushed the groups, all of the setup, all of the fields, all of the responses. We had asked if any of our client districts wanted help in integrating pre and re-enrollment or the back to school packet, that they could put a help desk ticket in if they needed that support to do that. So if you are a MyStarQ user and you do not have this information out there in your pre and re-enrollment package, then we invite you to submit a ticket so we can help you with that integration. I did include a couple of slides here that include our contact information if you need to contact your support team. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Janelle, for that informative walkthrough. And hopefully I get an A on my navigating skills for you. So,
You did. Thank you.
all right, thank you. So next up, PowerSchool, we have Ed Diedrich. Ed, did you want me to hit this link, or do you just want to share?
No, you're fine. I don't, we went ahead and we created video for this for all the customers. This is available on the community site. Jason Springle, our superstar PowerSchool person, has done a great job, as you all from PowerSchool know. The PowerSchool Insider, he does a weekly video on this type of stuff. He actually created a specific video for digital equity and learning preferences. We've built this, as many you've heard of many of the other solutions, nationwide. And so we're actually having another meeting with all the PowerSchool customers the first week of December to walk through the setup of that as well, in person, live with Ben Davis. And he's going to be walking through that and also helping folks understand what is going to be already pre-populated based on the data hub and the values that you saw David walk through. Because the CCSSO went through and did all of this, it was already available for us nationally to do. We've done this in many other states already, pre-populating those values as states differ. So this is pretty straightforward. It's available in the parent portal. It's available for student portal. It is available for editing on the admin side. There are multiple records available, and the latest one is then displayed. And so that you can see as that changes with those children and they get updated. And all, again, for the PowerSchool customers, there's a link here on the screen that takes you right to the community. And Jason has done a nice job of helping you with setup, configuration, how to turn it on for the parents, students, how to edit it, how to export it, getting reporting on it, all those different things. And then Ben Davis is going to take you even deeper on that, on how that connects to the Michigan Data Hub the first week of December. So I won't take any more time, and we'll leave it at that. So Kevin, back to you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Ed, for sharing that and sharing the link and the upcoming presentation from Ben Davis. All right. Skyward, it looks like, Tara, you are up now, and do you want me to walk through your slides, or would you like me, or are you going to plan on sharing your screen?
I did share my slides ahead of time, so if you want to walk through them, or I can share my screen, whichever works best.
Sure, I can walk through them.
Okay, sounds good. So I am Tara Kelpinski from Saginaw ISD, and we use Skyward as our student information system. Skyward has actually created a special program called Technology at Home, and this was released in May 2021. So if you are on that addendum or later, you should have access to this area. There are 4 areas where this can be input, and we'll go over those in the next few slides. The first one would be entered as each individual student, and this is part of the student profile. This will probably be used if you're using like a paper copy where parents are filling this out and turning that into the office. Hopefully that's only a few students that you need to do this for, but here is a view of what they would see in the office and the questions that can be answered. The second is part of the new student online enrollment module. So if you are using NSOE, there is a configuration to turn this on. I have given you the steps there on the left-hand side on where to find this, but you can display the Technology at Home questions for new students that are enrolling into your district, and you can also require them. So you can see that there at the bottom of the screen. The third option is online registration, and this is for returning students, typically used when at the beginning of the school year to verify their address and emergency contacts. So again, this is where you find that in the configuration of your online registration setup. It's part of the verifying student information and the setup fields. Once you, next slide, Kevin, I think. Yep. So once you click that setup fields, you will see that the Technology at Home or digital equity as part of the student information area again, and it gives you 4 options. Auto approve would mean once the parent completes this, it would automatically be part of their student profile. Approval needed would require the office to approve those answers to those questions, and then read only would only allow the parent to view the questions and not answer them. And of course, hide would mean that they would not see them at all. Online registration is specific to each entity or school in your district, so it has to be configured for each level. So your high school, your middle school, your elementary schools. Again, this is typically something that's set up at the beginning of the school year, so most have already used that. So the last option, thanks, Kevin, is the family access pseudo approval. This is where I would suggest if you're going to start collecting this, like right now, where you would turn this on, and it's just part of the family access. Again, if you go into your family access entity configuration and edit the pseudo changes, next slide. You will uncheck the disable and click your setup fields. And then again, at the bottom, similar to what you saw in online registration, you will see those options for technology at home, auto approve, approval needed. And this is kind of what the parent will view. So they would go to the student information tab on the left-hand side in the family access request changes and then student information. Once they click in that area, they'll see the 7 questions and they can answer those as correct for their student. And so then so those are the 4 options that we have in Skyward. I just wanted to show you the view here of what it looks like on the student profile once it's completed by either the office or the parent or guardian. Skyward does allow you to enter multiple records throughout the school year. Just keep in mind that an end date needs to be entered for the first record. Otherwise, if a parent goes in and tries to change that, it will just overwrite. So we need to make sure that there's an end date in there. And the one thing that I did not put on this slide here, but we are fully integrated with Advice. So once this data is live in your system and you are transferring data nightly to the Michigan Data Hub, that will be transferred. The other thing I did not include in here, sorry, Kevin, is reporting. So the reporting for this, you can get this data through data mining. So you would just need to set up your fields and data mining that you want to pull, and that information can be put into an Excel format or a report format. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you, Tara, for walking through that and providing all the screenshots. Appreciate it. Great presentations. Thanks to everybody for jumping on and sharing the details on that piece for every student information system. We are getting a little low on time here because we do have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. So I have a few more slides to walk through, and just over the My Data Hub cockpit, the data review, and some other areas of interest that we're trying to gauge some pull from the field on, just on how to query the data and visualize it. So this section, just My Data Hub cockpit, reviewing the data used in managed custom exports functionality. A lot of the folks on the call today have experience using the managed custom exports tool. There is documentation that's available through this process. We have 2 queries that will produce a report in the My Data Hub cockpit. One is the student indicator verification report. Second one is the digital equity summary report. And just note that to run these queries or reports in the My Data Hub cockpit, to again verify the data that was published over from the student information system, you'll at least have to be or have authorization as a technical contact or data steward. I did detail out, most of the time it's somebody on your technology or data team that has that level of access in a district. So, and as I always say, just reach out to us at support@mydatahub.org if you don't know who that individual might be in your district, because we can help identify that person. So real quick, just walking through, I pulled together a sample query, added Don, myself, and Wendy to it. So this is a query that will verify the data that's actually published over to my data hub. So, and again, some of you are familiar with how this might look and work, but this is the student indicator verification query. So what it's going to do is provide student level detail of each one of those responses. So this report or this query is part of a student indicator field. So you may see possibly other data included in this, at-risk information and some other things, but I think we have it pretty nailed down to just the digital equity data. So just be aware that you are able to look at individualized student level data, identifying the responses. So the last report sample I wanted to show was the digital equity summary query. And this one just provides the summary of the data. So it kind of aggregates the data by question type. So it's going to show you the number of respondees that, responded as a Chromebook of their digital device or a laptop computer, and if they have internet access in residence. So it really helps provide that summary level data of that data being collected for your use. So currently, there are no concrete plans on sharing the data. So there hasn't been really any formalized process for that. So it's district level data. The district owns the data. It resides in the ODS, and it's mainly can be used for district planning purposes. But we're currently brainstorming ideas on how to share this information. So one of the things you'll see at the end of the slide deck is there's a participation survey. And so that's where, the Department of Ed and along with us, we're trying to help gauge the interest and ideas and how to share this data and how to visualize it. So more to come there. But again, and I already mentioned, data is first and foremost for district use to inform their own planning. So again, the data is in your ODS. It's available for your district level planning too. We are anticipating there will be benefit to sharing this information in summary aggregate form at some date in the future. But again, still trying to figure out that whole process. And the key here is anytime we mention sharing or collaborating with other entities on this data, it's really voluntary and up to each district. So just keep that in mind too. So I added the slide in here. Don Daly and I talked about it a little bit, but how might the data be visualized and or used? So we're trying to figure out, again, in partnership with Anne Marie and Joe and Dave Judd and his team, what's the best way to visualize this data, and how can we provide Power BI reports or some other type of reports? And with all the data that it can be combined with in my data hub, the possibilities are really endless. So as you can see, we could do the number percentage of students with Chromebooks, laptops, smartphones, etc. Same with the number of students that don't have internet access. So, our intent is to say, okay, well, you provided us that base digital equity data, but what we'd like to see is how we can, aggregate that with other data that's available in my data hub. So it could be cross-tabulated with additional data points like address, zip codes. You can see the number of students that don't have internet access by specific zip code. I added in other demographics, so ethnicity, food service eligibility, etc. And then again, just additional metrics that might be helpful. So maybe by the ISD, could be by district, school, grade level, etc. There's specific data points too. So you could, provide a list of addresses like an internet service to go into negotiation with providers. So, the possibilities are endless due to the amount of data that's available in the ODS of how this might be pulled together. But the big piece that we're really striving for is to get input. And so that input from the districts is really invaluable. And so we just, need that. And so I did add in the slide with, do you have any thoughts on how the data might be used by your district to enhance an existing connectivity initiative? So not a question we need to answer right now, but it's just kind of food for thought, as next steps roll out. And again, just continuing on with the data visualization. So I did a larger screenshot of this on the next slide, but Wisconsin, Dave talked about in the beginning of the presentation about, this is being done in other states in a similar type way. This exact process isn't being used, but Wisconsin, as an example, they have a digital equity dashboard that they provide access to. So, and on their dashboard, it provides the % of students without internet access at home by school district, and it's broken down by affordability and availability. So, blowing this up a little bit more for you to be able to see this, but you can see they did a great job representing it using like a geographical mapping. But anyway, yeah, so the % of students, so you can see the % of students without home internet access by school district. The thing that I really like is the breakdown that they have. So you can see, the number of districts that are reporting. So there's 298 of the 421 districts. And so, just a different example of how the data might potentially be able to be visualized in Michigan. I mentioned on a previous slide by ISD and district, school, etc. We do a similar type map with My Data Hub. So we have the number of districts that have integrated with My Data Hub on our website. So it's a real similar type visualization. We also have it for SSO connectivity and other pieces. So it's something that everybody's really familiar with. But again, looking for that input back on, how to best visualize this data that's being captured. In closing, and Anne Marie, I don't know if you want to jump in on this, but for the survey piece, but I know, as questions arise, obviously the My Data Hub support team is here to assist. We're going to do our best to get back with you, and if there's any issues you have pulling any of those queries to verify the data, you can always reach out to us. I also included my email address in here. It's kevin.bullard@krisa.org. Feel free to reach out to me. One of the strong benefits of this statewide collaboration that we have with My Data Hub is we have Data Hub sports specialists, and some of those did some presenting today. So the Data Hub sports specialists are just phenomenal support structures that we have in place that work with our local districts on the My Data Hub functionality and how it's adopted and adapted in that student information system that they support. So we do have a list of those Data Hub sports specialists on our website, links there. And I don't know, Anne Marie, I'll let you take it from here if you're available to end with any closing remarks or further information on the survey.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin. And a huge thank you to Jennifer. Hang on a second. A huge thank you to Jennifer, to Greg. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
I can hear you.
Yeah, I keep getting a message saying I'm muted. So to Ed and to Tara, and to you, Kevin, and Don for assisting with this whole process, and to Dave Judd, for connecting with the other states on how we can coordinate this process. I think it will go a long way to give us greater insights, like we said, going back to the why. So I dropped a link to the feedback survey around the digital equity questions to really make this data collection of benefit to you all at districts. So, and ISDs. So, really looking at what reports, what data visualizations might be a benefit to LEAs in the state. So please participate in that. I think earlier on, we were talking about what time of year it makes sense to do this and when you have the data collection open. So some of that, I think, might come as part of this too. Like, I think we ask in there, when's the best time of year to collect these questions and this data? And just know that this is our first opportunity to connect on this. This is probably just one of many opportunities as we look to the data collection refinement, as well as to what's best practice around this. So this isn't the first time we'll be connecting on this, and we look forward to hearing from you. So please do participate in that survey. And Dave Judd, if you're on, I don't know if you have anything else to add, or Kevin, thanks so much. We can stay on too if there are any questions for a few more minutes.
Thank you, Anne Marie, and thanks, Kevin, and all those who presented. What a great opportunity to provide information that isn't really accurate at this point in a much more consistently collected and beneficial way locally. So thank you for all that are helping with this. The Suspenders Data Hub team, you guys are awesome. We look forward to, as Anne Marie, continuing the conversation and supporting this process as it rolls out in the best way possible. So thank you very much.
Thanks all. We'll hang out for another minute or two if there are any questions.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. Kevin, great work. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
I have a question. Will this be shared? How will this be shared?
Yeah, we will post it. I don't think we've connected on where it's going to be posted or shared, but that's one of the things to follow up on. We know we want to share it out.
Okay, thank you.